Welcome back to the deep dive.
Yeah.
Today we are undertaking a massive deep dive. It's logistical, it's cultural.
It really
The
is.
sources you've shared with us, I mean, they're not just a travel brochure, are they?
Not at all. It's more like a structural blueprint for, well, all of global movement. It gets into everything from the really complex infrastructure to the subtle cultural codes that can make or break a trip.
Yeah, that's what I found so interesting. We're moving way beyond just the idea of a vacation.
Precisely. We're looking at travel as this huge, multifaceted global industry. And honestly, if you want to understand the modern world, you have to understand how we move people across it.
Right.
And our sources just lay out the sheer um, mechanical complexity of coordinating billions of individual journeys every single year. It's staggering.
Okay, so let's unpack this with a clear mission for everyone listening. This deep dive is for you, the learner. We're here to give you a really structured, holistic understanding of the whole travel ecosystem. We want to go beyond just, simple vocabulary and actually show you how all these pieces fit together. The logistics, the culture, the new sustainability demands.
And it all creates the modern travel experience.
Exactly. And we're framing this deep dive around, I think, a really interesting tension. How is travel becoming hyper-localized
Right, like focusing on minimal impact, authentic experiences.
while at the same time becoming hyper-globalized?
Yeah.
We're talking about everything from space tourism to these incredibly complex international visa rules.
That's a great way to put it. And what's fascinating here, I think, is the sheer breadth of human intention that the sources cover. We aren't just talking about holidaymakers.
Yeah.
The sources break it down into 8 distinct reasons why people travel, many of them financial, and then 5 completely different styles of doing it.
Which immediately tells you that the planning for, say, a luxury safari
Yeah.
is going to be completely different from a volunteer medical mission.
Entirely incomparable. The logistical calculus is just on another planet.
Absolutely. So to understand the mechanism, we have to understand the motive. Let's start right there. The spectrum of travel, the purpose, and the style. Why do we even bother to pack a bag and leave home?
So yeah, the why. It's the most fundamental question. Hashtag 1.1, the 8 reasons for travel. The why.
Let's start with the most intuitive one, the one that, props up entire national economies.
Leisure travel.
Exactly. Leisure or recreational travel. This is purely about pleasure, relaxation, enjoyment.
This is your beach holiday, your city break for the weekend.
A wine tasting tours, ski trip, it's all driven by discretionary income, right?
Yeah.
And that basic human desire for something new, an escape from the routine.
It is. But the moment you start analyzing the economic impact, you see the contrast.
Oh, for sure.
Because in stark contrast to leisure is business travel.
A whole different animal.
Completely. This type of travel is non-discretionary. It's driven by commerce. People are traveling for work,
So attending conferences, meeting clients.
conducting high-stakes negotiations, site inspections.
Yeah.
You name it. And what's really notable is that while the leisure traveler is looking for unique experiences,
Right.
the business traveler is often seeking the exact opposite. They want standardization.
That is such a crucial point. Guaranteed Wi-Fi.
Yes, quick ground transport, reliable hotel chains. Because time is the commodity. That's what you're trying to protect.
That standardization point is key. Business travelers, they need that reliable infrastructure.
Yeah.
The next category, adventure travel, they're actively looking for places where that infrastructure is, well, sparse or challenging.
Exactly. The focus just completely shifts. It's all about thrill-seeking, often in remote or physically demanding places.
So we're talking about things like mountain climbing or
Or extreme sports tourism, extended scuba diving expeditions. The planning emphasis is just worlds apart. Leisure travel planning focuses on comfort.
and adventure travel.
Adventure travel focuses intensely on specialized safety protocols. You need high-grade insurance, you often need specific permits, and you absolutely need local guides who have that deep indigenous knowledge of the area.
And that kind of specialized focus, but in the realm of knowledge, brings us to educational travel. Here, the motivation is singular. It's about acquiring a skill or knowledge.
Right. And this can range from, a high school exchange program or a university semester abroad.
To something really specific.
Very specific, very niche, like learning advanced woodworking in Scandinavia or taking traditional cooking classes in Tuscany.
The sources are really clear on this. Your choice of destination for educational travel is totally dictated by what's uniquely available there.
Yeah.
The cultural capital, the specialized facility.
Right, you go to Hawaii to learn to surf from the best,
Of course.
or you go to certain parts of India for very specific yoga instruction. It's an investment in yourself, which means you, as the traveler, you're expecting some kind of measurable outcome.
Then we get to a really complex and often ethically fraught category.
Volunteer travel, or voluntourism.
Volunteerism. It combines travel with charitable work. And we've seen this trend just explode, right? People participating in everything from building schools to wildlife conservation.
It's huge, but the complexity, which the sources definitely touch on, is the whole discussion around its effectiveness and the potential negative impacts.
Yeah, that's the tricky part.
I mean, the motivation is altruistic, but critics argue that a lot of these short-term missions can displace local labor, or even worse, create these unsustainable dependencies.
So the ethical traveler has to do their homework.
You have to. You have to carefully vet these programs to make sure the host community is actually benefiting in a structural, long-term way, not just for a moment while you're there.
Speaking of complex logistics driven by necessity, we have medical travel.
Or health tourism. It's a global behemoth.
It is. People are traveling specifically for medical procedures, dental work, specialized wellness retreats.
And the driving factor here is often a combination of cost and availability.
Right, cost arbitrage.
Exactly. Destinations like Thailand, India, and Mexico, they've become major hubs because they offer world-class facilities at a fraction of the cost you'd find in the US or Western Europe.
And that requires a whole support system.
A robust one. You need a strong regulatory environment, specialized travel agents who manage the entire complex itinerary, from the surgery appointment to the recovery hotel. It's travel focused purely on bodily restoration.
And finally, a category that sort of transcends all these modern economic drivers. It's rooted entirely in history and faith.
Pilgrimage or religious travel.
This is that annual scheduled movement to sacred sites. Mecca, Jerusalem, the Vatican.
Right, the Ganges River. And this type of travel is unique because the massive logistical infrastructure it requires, I mean, you're often managing millions of people at the same time, like during the Hajj.
Unbelievable logistics.
And it's all dictated by ancient schedules and religious mandate, not modern commercial efficiency. It's movement dictated by spiritual purpose. And if you're planning any commercial travel in those regions, you absolutely have to know those dates.
That analysis really shows just how varied the why can be. But the motive, it dictates the method. Which brings us to the 5 distinct travel styles. Hashtag 1.2, 5 distinct travel styles.
The how.
Yeah, the how. This is where the execution really differs.
So if your motive is cost efficiency and spontaneity, you're probably leaning towards backpacking.
Classic.
The style is all about budget travel, minimal luggage, usually just one big pack, relying on hostels, and, prioritizing flexibility over a fixed itinerary.
You're maximizing your time and minimizing your costs. That's the formula.
And then you have the complete antithesis of that.
Luxury travel.
Here, the sole focus is opulence, comfort, exclusivity.
Money is no object. We're talking 5-star hotels, personalized service, private transfers, first-class flights, or private jets. The priority totally shifts from minimizing cost to curating the experience, often with personal guides, access to exclusive events.
Exactly. And then a style that's become incredibly popular is solo travel.
The sources really note its immense popularity. It seems to be driven by a desire for personal empowerment, for transformation.
It is. And logistically, this requires a much higher focus on personal safety and self-reliance. The solo traveler basically has to become their own independent logistician.
You're doing it all yourself.
You are. And you contrast that high level of independence with group travel.
Right. This could be organized tours, family reunions, or just a group of friends traveling together.
And the benefit here is shared security, it's companionship, and often it's economically efficient. You get group rates, negotiated deals.
And the logistical burden shifts.
It's transferred from the individual to a single tour operator, usually.
And then there's the great American ideal. Well, maybe not just American. The road trip.
Yes. It's popular in any massive country, really. The US, Australia, big parts of Europe.
And here, the emphasis is squarely on the journey itself.
That's the whole point. It's about driving scenic routes, discovering quirky roadside stops, and just maintaining complete flexibility. It's a style of travel where the infrastructure of the destination is less important than the reliability of the roads themselves.
What stands out to me here is how these different styles, From, spontaneous backpacking to a really rigid luxury tour, they just require entirely different planning.
And they interact with the infrastructure differently. A backpacker navigates a city using public transit and stays in hostels. A luxury traveler is using private car services and basically bypasses the public system entirely.
That complexity really forces us to look at the systems that move us, the modes of movement.
Exactly. So let's dive into that, the mechanics of it all.
All right, section 2. Let's analyze the mechanics of global movement. Hashtag tag 2.1 air travel logistics. Let's start with air travel. It's the fastest, but it's also, I would argue, the most complex mode of mass international movement.
I agree with that. It all starts at the facility, which we all call the airport.
Though the sources also mention aerodrome.
They do, which is technically correct, but much less common in everyday speech. It usually refers to a smaller facility for, say, non-scheduled or light aircraft, not the huge commercial hubs we're all familiar with.
Got it. So you arrive at the airport. The logistics begin immediately with this series of structured compliance steps.
Right. First, you have to check in. That's you confirming you're on the flight and getting your boarding pass.
And if you have larger bags, you check your bags, you're handing them over to the airline.
And that's a critical legal distinction. There's a transfer of liability. Once your bag is checked, it's the airline's responsibility, though it's subject to some pretty strict liability limits.
The next checkpoint is highly political, it's regulatory. You have to move through security.
This is a mandatory screening process. It's all about ensuring compliance with both international and national safety standards. Once you're cleared, you can proceed to the departure gate, and you wait for your gate number to be called for boarding.
And the special vocabulary continues when you land.
Oh yes, for international trips, you retrieve your luggage at baggage claim, and then you have to proceed through customs.
And this is a really crucial distinction that I think a lot of people get wrong.
They do. So let's clarify. Customs is focused on the goods and currency you're bringing into the country. They're making sure taxes are paid and contraband is seized.
And immigration.
Immigration is focused on you, your passport, your visa. They're determining if you are legally allowed to enter the country. They're separate functions, though they often happen close together.
That clarity is so important. We also need to understand the different kinds of flights you might be on.
Absolutely. The simplest distinction is domestic flights, which stay within a country's borders and are governed by domestic laws,
Versus international flights.
which cross sovereign boundaries. And that triggers a whole web of complex international aviation laws and bilateral agreements between countries.
And then we have the one that causes the most stress, connecting flights.
The bane of the frequent traveler. A direct flight goes from point A to point B without you having to change planes. It might stop for fuel, but you stay on board.
But a connecting flight.
A connecting flight requires you to physically get off one plane and onto another. And this is where the logistical risk comes in. A delay on your first leg could make you miss your second.
Which is why it's usually a good idea to book those connections through the same airline.
It's highly advisable. The airline then assumes responsibility for getting you to your final destination, even if a delay happens.
Okay, let's go inside the plane itself, that massive flying tube. The terminology is pretty straightforward.
It is. The cockpit is for the flight crew, the operational center. The cabin is where the passengers are.
But the seating classes are actually really significant economically.
Very. The high-priced first class and business class seats essentially subsidize the less expensive, high-density economy class. It allows airlines to leverage their capacity and use price discrimination really effectively. Hashtag, tag 2.2, rail travel and infrastructure.
Okay, moving from the sky to the ground. Rail travel. Still absolutely essential, especially in densely populated corridors.
For sure. You begin your journey at the railway station, or train station. As the sources note, in American English, a smaller, more local facility might be called a train depot.
And the types of trains really reveal their purpose.
They do. You have commuter trains, which are all about high-frequency, short-distance trips. They prioritize standing room, quick loading, and unloading.
But the real game changers in modern rail are the high-speed trains.
Japan's Shinkansen, France's TGV, these are incredible feats of engineering, and the sources highlight that high-speed rail isn't just a faster train.
It's an entire economic and infrastructure project.
Exactly. These trains often compete directly with airlines for short to medium haul routes. They offer rapid, comfortable service from one city center to another, which can make certain domestic flight routes basically obsolete.
And for the longer routes, there's the more romantic experience, the overnight train.
Right, which often have sleeping compartments. These are private or semi-private rooms where the seats convert into beds for the night.
And then there are trains built purely for that leisure purpose we talked about.
The scenic trains. These are designed specifically to maximize the view. The routes are chosen entirely for their aesthetic value. Think the Swiss Alps or the Canadian Rockies.
And the facilities on board reflect the length and purpose of the journey.
Absolutely. You'll often have first class, which offers more space, better food, sometimes dedicated lounges, compared to standard or second class.
And long-haul trains will frequently have a proper dining car.
A sit-down meal experience, and those scenic trains will almost always have an observation car with huge panoramic windows or even open decks for sightseeing. Hashtag 2.3 road transportation and modern shifts.
Road transport is everywhere, but it is a minefield of local vocabulary. We have to talk about the British versus American distinctions that the sources flag.
Oh, absolutely. This is so important. The car itself is universal, but what we call things surrounding it, it differs wildly.
So in the UK, you'd look for a car park.
But in the US, that's a parking lot.
And for fuel, the UK uses petrol.
While US uses gas or gasoline, and you really don't want to mix those up at the pump in a foreign country.
No, you don't. When you're using the roads, your options range from a self-drive trip where you're in charge of everything
To hiring a driver, that could be a premium chauffeur or the more common taxi or cab.
But we can't talk about road transport without talking about the massive, unavoidable revolution.
Ride-sharing services. Uber, Lyft, Grab in Southeast Asia. These app-based services have completely upended urban transport.
How so?
Well, they offer dynamic pricing, GPS tracking, and cash-free payment. That solves a lot of the major issues you have with traditional taxis, like language barriers or trying to negotiate a fare.
But it's also created huge regulatory headaches for cities.
Immense challenges. They're all trying to figure out how to harmonize these old transport laws with this new technology. It's a constant battle.
For longer distances on the road, we distinguish between buses and coaches.
Right. And while they can be used interchangeably, the sources point to a British convention that's quite useful. A bus is for local urban transit.
Making lots of stops.
Exactly. Whereas a coach is a more luxurious, long-distance inner-city vehicle. It'll often have restrooms, Wi-Fi, reclining seats. They operate out of dedicated bus stations or coach terminals,
And you can also have an express bus.
which bypasses a lot of the intermediate stops to prioritize speed, versus a local bus, which serves every single designated stop along its route.
We also have to mention some alternative road methods, especially for those adventure and solo travelers.
Sure. Motorcycle or motorbike travel, which requires specialized safety gear, is a big one, and also bicycle touring.
Where your luggage has to be meticulously balanced and stored in special bags.
It's called panniers, yeah. It's a whole subculture of travel. Hashtag tag 2.4 water and future transportation.
Okay, let's talk water travel. It's slower, but it offers a unique scale and experience. The biggest passenger vessels are cruise ships or ocean liners.
And the logistics for a cruise begin at a dedicated port or harbor. The ship follows a very specific, predetermined itinerary of different ports of call.
And your room on the ship is called a cabin or a stateroom.
Right. And I have to say, the logistics of managing thousands of passengers and all their needs for weeks at a time, it might be the single most complex logistical puzzle in the entire travel ecosystem,
I can believe it. Beyond those huge cruises, you have ferries.
which serve a really functional role, moving people and vehicles across essential short sea routes.
For the luxury segment, there are private yachts. And for traditionalists, sailboats.
And interestingly, the sources mention that even those huge, slow-moving cargo ships sometimes take a limited number of passengers.
Really, who would that appeal to?
Someone seeking the ultimate in slowness and disconnection, I think. A very different kind of journey.
And connecting back to that tension we started with, hyperglobalization, we have to talk about the absolute frontier.
Space.
Companies like SpaceX and Virgin Galactic are pioneering commercial transportation beyond our atmosphere. It's astronomically expensive, of course.
For now.
For now, but it represents the ultimate logistical leap. We're not just moving people across continents anymore, but out of orbit entirely. It demands completely new kinds of infrastructure and risk assessment.
It's a whole new paradigm.
So we've moved from the mechanics of the journey. Now we have to address the planning that comes before it all. Even the simplest trip, requires mastering a pre-departure checklist.
This is so critical. Planning is basically the process of mitigating risk. It's how you turn a dream into a predictable, manageable series of steps. ###### 3.1 research and financial planning.
Step one is always deep research. You choose your destination. Maybe you were inspired by a travel blog, a guidebook, a documentary.
Whatever it is, once you have the place, the learner has to dive into the essential details. You need to know about the local culture, customs, climate, currency, language, the main attractions,
And ignoring this homework is just the fastest way to get frustrated on your trip.
or to cause offense unintentionally.
Right. And that initial research immediately informs your budgeting.
It has to. The sources really emphasize calculating costs meticulously. You have to segment your expenses.
So a bucket for accommodation, one for transportation, food, activities, souvenirs.
And critically, a buffer for emergency expenses. A well-planned budget should have at least a 15 to 20% cushion for unforeseen costs. A medical issue, a flight delay,
Things happen.
they always do.
So once the money is allocated, it's time for booking.
And the modern traveler leans so heavily on online booking platforms. Expedia, Booking.com, Skyscanner.
These sites use really complex algorithms to give you real-time price comparisons and confirmed reservations. It's basically consolidated the role of a travel agent into a digital interface you can hold in your hand. ###3.2 accommodation options.
And the choice of where you stay, your lodging, it has to align with the travel style we talked about back in Section 1.
The options are vast. They're
Yeah.
designed to cater to every single budget.
At the high end, you have full-service hotels and dedicated resorts that offer all-inclusive packages.
For the backpacker, it's all about hostels. Shared rooms, communal facilities. The priorities are low cost and social interaction.
Then you have bed and breakfasts, or B&Bs. They offer a more intimate home-style experience, often focused on local charm.
And then there's the huge disruption from the shared economy.
Vacation rentals,
Hmm.
primarily through platforms like Airbnb. This allows you to rent private apartments or entire homes. It really appeals to groups who need more space or solo travelers who want to experience a local neighborhood.
And of course, for the most rugged, you have camping sites and also more personal guest houses. The options are endless. ###3.3 travel documents and security. Okay, this section is non-negotiable. This is the legal foundation of international travel.
It absolutely is. You must have a valid passport.
And the sources stress a really important detail here that catches a lot of people. The passport often has to be valid for at least 6 months beyond your planned return date.
That 6-month rule is a trap so many travelers fall into. It's heartbreaking to be denied boarding for that.
And the next legal hurdle is the visa, official permission to enter a country.
And this can be incredibly complex. You might need to apply at an embassy or consulate months in advance, submitting tons of documentation.
Or, if you're lucky,
If you're lucky, the destination might offer a visa on arrival, where you handle the paperwork at the airport when you land. And the best case scenario is visa-free entry, based on agreements between nations.
and checking your specific status is absolutely non-negotiable.
You cannot guess on this.
Now let's talk security, specifically travel insurance.
I wouldn't even call it optional. It's risk management, pure and simple.
That covers medical emergencies abroad, which can bankrupt you in a heartbeat.
Absolutely. It also covers trip cancellations due to unforeseen events and the incredibly frustrating experience of lost luggage. The sources basically define insurance as the traveler's financial firewall,
Health is paramount too. You have to check for required vaccinations or immunizations.
especially for destinations with known infectious disease risks. You get this information from a specialized travel clinic. This is a proactive step against major health risks.
Okay, finally, the practical stuff. Creating a detailed packing list is step one.
Step 2 is strictly adhering to the airline's baggage allowances.
Don't ignore the weight or size limits.
Or you are guaranteed to pay expensive excess baggage fees. They will get you.
And let's not forget the financial security checks. You have to notify your bank.
Your credit card company, too. Tell them your travel dates and your destination. If you don't, the bank's fraud system will often automatically freeze your card. They'll assume it was stolen.
And that's a nightmare you don't want to deal with abroad.
And make copies. Photocopies, digital backups of all your critical documents, passport, visa, and store them separately from the originals. That redundancy is just critical for mitigating disaster.
Okay, preparation complete. Now we can step inside the operational environment, the physical structures that make all this movement possible. Let's navigate the infrastructure.
Right. Navigating global travel really means mastering the layout and purpose of all these specialized buildings. Hashtag 4.1 airport and rail facilities?
Major airports are.
Yeah.
They're like small cities. They're massive, complex operations, often broken up into multiple terminals to manage the flow of traffic.
Inside, you follow a very specific path. From the check-in counters to the security checkpoints, through the departure lounges, and eventually to your boarding gate.
And for those long waits, the amenities are key. You got duty-free shops offering tax-exempt goods.
Currency exchange booths for foreign money, and information desks, which are sort of the human resource for navigation and solving problems.
Now, here's a fascinating logistical concept that really shows global cooperation. Transit areas.
These are so clever. They are dedicated, secure spaces designed for connecting international passengers,
And a legal genius of it is that a person in transit isn't officially considered to have entered the country.
which allows millions of people to change planes without needing a visa for the layover country. It's a brilliant system.
And upon completing your journey, you finally land in the arrivals hall, where people are waiting, and then you proceed through immigration to legally enter the nation.
Understanding that whole path is the difference between a seamless arrival and hours of bureaucratic delay.
Okay, let's move to the rail world. Train station logistics are similar, but on a different scale.
Right. You buy tickets at the ticket office or from an automated ticket machine. Trains depart from specific platforms, and all the schedules are dictated by the information boards.
Functionality is built in. You have waiting rooms for comfort, and a lot of major stations offer left luggage facilities.
Which are so useful. They let you temporarily store your bags so you can explore a city on a long layover without dragging your stuff around.
And many stations also have first-class lounges for premium ticket holders.
Right. And the overall operational integrity of the whole station that falls under the authority of the station master. Hashtag 4.2 road systems and ports.
Good road infrastructure. This facilitates massive internal movement within countries. We need to distinguish between the major highways.
We do. In the UK, they're called motorways. In the US, they're highways or freeways. These are the arteries for fast, long-distance traffic.
And along these arteries, you have road amenities, which are non-negotiable necessities.
These are your service stations in the UK or rest stops in the US. They provide not just fuel, but also crucial opportunities for drivers to rest, use restrooms, and get food.
Driver fatigue is a huge safety issue.
It is, which makes these facilities critical infrastructure. They're not just a convenience.
Financially, travelers on the road also need to be prepared for road payments. Many key routes are toll roads.
Right, you have to pay for use. This payment is collected at traditional manned toll booths or, increasingly, electronically,
Through prepaid toll tags or automated license plate readers.
which really speeds up the flow of traffic.
Parking. It seems so simple, but it has its own complex terminology.
It does. You need to differentiate the open-air parking lots in the U.S. or car parks in the U.K.
From the multi-level covered parking garages or multi-story car parks.
And for city parking, you have to understand parking meters or pay-and-display machines. And for premium venues, there's the convenience of valet parking, where you hand your car over to an attendant.
Finally, water infrastructure. Large commercial ships and cruise ships rely on deep-water ports and harbors.
And these are distinct from marinas, which are facilities dedicated to smaller recreational boats like yachts and sailboats.
And ports require the same border control as airports. Their terminals have customs and immigration.
Passengers get on board via gangways. Marinas, on the other hand, serve smaller private traffic. They offer services like berths or slips for mooring and often have facilities like a yacht club and fueling stations for pleasure craft.
Okay. We have thoroughly mapped the mechanics of movement and the architecture of the facilities. Now we have to turn to the most volatile component of travel.
The human element.
Exactly. The unspoken rules that dictate whether you are welcomed or, shunned. We're talking about cultural intelligence.
This section is really the difference between just traveling and truly integrating. Cultural intelligence is all about knowing the unspoken rules of a society.
A great starting point for this is punctuality. The spectrum is enormous.
It really is. In what you'd call high-context, high-efficiency cultures like Japan, Germany, or Switzerland, punctuality is a fundamental sign of respect.
Being even a few minutes late can be a big deal.
It can jeopardize a business deal or deeply insult a host. It's not taken lightly.
But conversely, the sources note that in many Mediterranean cultures, Latin American or parts of the Middle East, time is perceived more fluidly.
It's a polychronic view of time. A 15-minute delay might be culturally acceptable, sometimes even expected. A traveler who tries to impose rigid Northern European time standards on that kind of culture is just going to end up frustrated and potentially seem quite rude.
Another absolute minefield, tipping customs.
Oh, this is one of the most culturally specific financial decisions you will ever make as a traveler.
You have two extremes. In the U.S., tipping 15 to 20%. It's not just generosity.
It's considered mandatory. Service workers rely on it for their livelihood. It's part of their wage.
And on the complete opposite side of that is Japan.
Where tipping can genuinely be considered insulting, it implies that the employer isn't paying their worker enough, or that the service was somehow deficient and you feel you need to offer a special inducement. It's a cultural faux pas.
And in many European countries, it's a middle ground.
Right. A service charge is often already included in the bill, which makes additional tipping redundant, though rounding up the bill is sometimes a friendly gesture.
Okay, let's talk about personal space and greetings. The physical distance you stand from someone during a conversation is entirely cultural.
Completely. In Northern Europe and North America, a larger physical distance is preferred, a bit of an arm's length. Invading that space can be perceived as aggressive or strange.
Yet, in Mediterranean and Latin American cultures,
People stand and talk much closer. Casual touching on the arm or shoulder is common. It's a sign of warmth.
and greetings are just as varied. You have the professional handshake in the West,
The non-contact bowing in many parts of Asia, where the depth of the bow can vary based on seniority.
or the highly intimate multiple cheek kisses in parts of the Middle East and Southern Europe that can really disorient an unprepared traveler.
For sure, you have to know whether to go left or right first.
Dining etiquette is another deep well of unspoken rules. Knowing how to correctly hold and use chopsticks in East Asia is essential.
And understanding that in certain Middle Eastern and Indian cultures, the left hand is considered unclean and food should only be handled with the right hand. That's a vital piece of knowledge.
It's about showing respect.
It is. And even the social rhythm of a meal is cultural. In formal Western settings, it's often polite to wait for the host to indicate the meal has begun.
But in some communal dining traditions, the meal starts as soon as the food is served. It's about immediate consumption and sharing.
Right. And finally, there are the highly visible cultural indicators, dress codes and communication.
If you're traveling to conservative or religious countries, from parts of Southeast Asia to the Middle East, you have to research appropriate attire.
Often that means covering your shoulders and knees. And this isn't arbitrary. It's a profound display of respect for local values.
And communication styles vary dramatically. The sources detail the difference between cultures that favor direct, explicit communication.
Where the meaning is stated clearly and literally, yes means yes, no means no.
Versus those that prefer indirect contextual styles.
Where requests or criticisms are subtly implied, misunderstanding this can lead to massive commercial missteps. For instance, a polite maybe or that will be difficult in a high-context culture might actually be a firm no.
But saying no directly is considered impolite.
Exactly.
That distinction, direct versus indirect, is maybe the single most important tool for the traveler acting as a cultural diplomat.
It's what prevents awkwardness from escalating into genuine offense.
Now, let's pivot to the two modern forces that are fundamentally reshaping all of these rules: sustainability and technology. The era of just consuming travel without thought, it's over. We now live in the era of conscious movement. And this brings us to sustainable and responsible tourism. Hashtag 6.1, sustainable and responsible tourism.
Right. Sustainable tourism, which is often used interchangeably with ecotourism, is defined not just by what you see, but by the impact you leave behind.
The goal is to minimize the negative environmental and social consequences.
While at the same time ensuring that the economic benefits flow directly and sustainably to the local communities, it's a long-term commitment, not just a short-term cleanup effort.
And the primary challenge is the environmental impact. This is centered on the traveler's carbon footprint, the measurable amount of CO2 released.
And the single biggest contributor to that footprint for most international travelers is long-haul air travel.
The sources offer some concrete, practical steps to mitigate this.
They do. Choosing direct flights is key. The takeoff and landing phases of a flight consume a disproportionate amount of fuel compared to cruising at altitude.
So fewer takeoffs and landings is better.
Much better. Also, flying economy class is environmentally superior to first or business class.
Really? How so?
It's about space allocation. Economy allocates less physical space and therefore less of the total flight's carbon burden per passenger. You're fitting more people onto the same flight.
That makes sense. And at your destination.
Maximize your use of local public transportation. Reduce your reliance on taxis or rental cars.
And what about carbon offset programs?
The sources endorse them as a tool, but with a strong note of caution. Travelers have to vet these programs rigorously. You need to ensure the funding is genuinely leading to measurable, verifiable carbon reduction, and it's not just corporate greenwashing.
A huge social problem that's emerged is overtourism.
Yes. This is when the sheer volume of visitors surpasses the infrastructural and cultural capacity of a destination.
So you're overwhelming sewage systems, driving up local rents.
Damaging fragile historical sites like in Venice or the environment around a place like Machu Picchu.
What are the structural solutions the sources propose for this? It feels like it moves beyond just individual choice.
It does. It involves things like visiting during the off-peak seasons to spread the tourist load throughout the year. It means actively seeking out lesser-known destinations to draw tourist traffic away from those saturated hotspots.
And it means strict compliance with local regulations.
Absolutely. Things like restricted entry zones or time-based access limits, you have to respect the rules the locals put in place to protect their home.
Ethical travel also requires a kind of conscious consumerism.
Definitely. Travelers have to actively combat plastic pollution, carry a reusable water bottle, consciously refuse single-use plastics that hotels or vendors offer you.
And financially, ethical travelers are encouraged to support local businesses.
Boutique hotels, independent restaurants, local guides. The goal is to ensure the tourism dollar stays within the host economy rather than cycling back to a multinational corporate headquarters somewhere else.
And critically, travelers have to avoid attractions that exploit animals.
The sources are very clear on this. Ethical tourism means rejecting elephant rides, petting zoos with wild animals, performances with captive dolphins,
The moral imperative is to favor certified sanctuaries.
or to observe wildlife in their natural habitats with certified, responsible guides who follow strict non-interference protocols. It's about observation, not interaction. Hashtag tech 6.2, technology's transformation of travel.
Okay, it is exhausting to be an ethical, responsible logistician. But fortunately, technology has emerged as this hyper-efficient co-pilot for the modern traveler.
It really has. The most immediate change is in navigation and access. The ubiquity of smartphone apps has revolutionized how we move.
Real-time GPS mapping. Google Maps, for instance. It gives you instantaneous directions, public transit schedules, predicted arrival times.
It's rendered paper maps largely obsolete, even in the most complex foreign cities.
And that technological convenience extends to our documents, too.
The era of losing your paper tickets is fading away. It's being replaced by digital boarding passes and streamlined mobile check-in processes. It saves an immense amount of time at the airport and the hotel.
And the language barrier, which was historically the biggest point of friction in international travel.
It's collapsing, thanks to translation apps. These sophisticated tools can offer real-time spoken translation. Some can even translate text from an image, so you can read a foreign menu or a street sign.
It's like having an instant cultural bridge in your pocket.
It really is, and for logistics, you have travel booking apps like Skyscanner or Kayak. They provide powerful price comparison tools across airlines and platforms.
But we do have to address the reliance on travel review sites like TripAdvisor.
We do. While they're incredibly useful, travelers have to recognize that reviews are subjective, and they can be manipulated. You have to be critical and assess a large volume of feedback before you make an informed decision.
Urban mobility is now defined by ride-sharing apps. Uber, Lyft, Grab.
These services offer standardized pricing and a layer of security, and they bypass a lot of the traditional complexities of finding a ride. But the sources also caution about the data security implications.
How so?
Well, you have so many aspects of your itinerary, from payment to your precise location centralized within these corporate applications. It's a trade-off between convenience and privacy.
Finally, technology is what drives our inspiration and our planning.
For sure. Social media platforms, Instagram, TikTok, have become major forces in destination marketing. They've created the phenomenon of the Instagram-worthy location.
Which sometimes contribute to that over-tourism problem in places that aren't prepared for it.
Exactly. And looking ahead, the role of virtual reality is emerging. It will allow travelers to preview a hotel room, a cruise ship cabin, maybe even a historical site before they book.
It reduces uncertainty, which is good, but it also raises a question.
Does experiencing a place virtually diminish the actual surprise and joy of physical arrival?
That's a good question.
We'll have to see.
We have covered so much ground today. We've moved from the 8 distinct motivations for human movement to the granular mechanics of air travel security, train logistics, the difference between a car park and a parking lot.
And those crucial variances in global tipping customs.
Yeah. If we connect this all to the bigger picture, the sources revere that the expectation placed on the modern traveler is comprehensive.
It really is. You have to be simultaneously an adept logistician who uses complex technology
A sensitive cultural diplomat, navigating unwritten rules.
and a responsible environmental steward, constantly measuring your impact. Travel has just irrevocably shifted from a simple act of movement to a complex series of conscious choices that reflect a deep global awareness.
We've aimed to arm you with the deep, functional vocabulary that's associated with all this infrastructure, understanding everything from transit areas and toll tags to the subtle difference between customs and immigration.
Use this holistic knowledge.
Yeah, use it to approach your next planning session, whether it's for a luxury trip or a backpacking adventure, with real confidence and competence.
Which I think raises an important final question, building on that tension we discussed at the very start.
Go on.
As technology gives us instant bookings and VR previews, and as sustainability concerns increasingly dominate the conversation, how will the emphasis on local community support and slow, responsible travel fundamentally redefine what we even consider luxury in the next decade?
That's a great question. Will the ultimate luxury truly be the ability to travel without leaving a measurable footprint?
I think it might be.